On a cold, clear winter's night, stars reflect in the lake. Tears for her sweetheart fill her eyes, till she can no longer hold the salt water drops that drip ripples on the watery skies. It was tomorrow she was to wed, but no bride will she be. The press gang took a fiancé away to fight for king and country on some far-off foreign shore, with but a promise to return again someday. All night she sits on the shore of the lake, where as a child she had played, staring at the other side where her true love had lived, and she longs to return to those days. In the winter she cut across the frozen lake to a love who lived on the other side. When the birds return and the ice begins to break, in the spring he shall make her his bride. She senses the bad news before it is spoke. In battle he drew his last breath. His body cannot be found, but they all saw him go down. Says the news of his untimely death. Quite beside herself, she walked down to the lake and walked on till the current pulled her down. The icy cold water swallowed her pain, and in the dark depths she was drowned. A layer of ice formed on the water that night, the coldest night we ever saw. And for a whole year winter cast a shroud across the land. 12 months and the lake didn't thaw. In the winter she walked across the frozen lake to her love who lived on the other side. When the birds return and the ice begins to break, in the spring he shall make her his bride. 12 months of winter, then a soldier appears, inquiring where his betrothed might be. He is told of her death in the water so cold, and in tears he is led off to sea. He sat on the ice, his heart heavy with grief, salty tears melting the ice, till underneath he can see the face of his love, and he thinks he hears her desperate cries. He smashed through the ice had died down to his love, convinced that new life he could bring. And in her arms he drowned, and the ice began to melt on that very first morning of spring. In the winter, she would cross the frozen lake to her love who lived on the other side. Now the birds return and the ice begins to break, for it is the spring, and he has made her his bride.